Hi, this is Jason from Horrific Nightmares, and I've been tagged by Hellhound to do the horror and metal tag from the channel Horror Metal. Yeah, that's kind of confusing, but yeah. This is one I've been really looking forward to doing. Two of my absolute favorite subjects. So let's get started. Question number one: how do you watch horror movies? Do you have to be in a certain mood or whatever? I'm always in the mood for a horror movie. I love movies in general, but horror is anytime, nighttime, daytime, morning. I usually stick one on the in my DVD player in the morning or in my VCR, and go from there. So yeah. Question number two: what are two metal albums? Sorry about that, guys. What are two metal albums you've listened to so much you wore them out? He used another word, but I figure wore them out was easier to understand. I'm going to give you three. And Justice for All from Metallica. I probably know every word, every song. We used to listen to it back and forth, back and forth. Yeah. And I actually saw them on that tour twice. So, Badlands with Jakey Lee, and probably Operation Mindcrime from Queensryche. So, let's see. Question number three: who would win in a four-way tournament between Jason, Michael, Freddy, and Leatherface? First of all, Leatherface is gone. His rules were everybody's mortal and in the present world. So Leatherface is gone right away, even though I love him because he's mortal. Freddy, he's he kind of uses his powers to the utmost. I think he would be gone next. Jason would definitely overpower him, and Michael would just start slashing. I think it would probably be Jason and Michael in the standing at the end. Yeah, because neither one of them can die. All right. Question number four: who are your top five metal vocalists and why? Eric Martin from Mr. Big, because he injects the soul into metal, and I love it. Ray Gillian from Badlands, rest in peace. He was great. Fit that band perfectly. Of course, Ozzy from Black Sabbath and Ozzy. I grew up listening to Ozzy all the time. I'm a child of the 80s, so hair metal bands and all that kind of stuff were kind of, that's, yeah. Dio, of course, he's one of my favorites. And Jeff Tate from Queensryche. Yeah, Queensryche and Sabotage were probably my two favorite bands when I was in high school. And I listened to Queensryche so much, it's crazy. Let's see. Question number five. This is a tough one. Why do you love horror, and what does horror mean to you? Um, I started watching horror when I was really, really young. My first two legitimate horror movies were Happy Birthday to Me and Friday the 13th Part 2. Mostly everyone who is subscribed to me already knows that. My very first movie that my dad took me to was Godzilla vs. Megalon. So, and my dad doesn't like horror movies. I guess he thought that would be a fun one to take a 4-year-old or 5-year-old to see, which it was. Yeah. Um, I don't know. There's something. I love all horror. All different subgenres of horror. My probably my least favorite are vampires, um, but of course, Subspecies is one of my favorite movies of all time. But yeah, regardless, I'm kind of waffling here, as Lisa Loves would say. Um, yeah, there is something very nostalgic and very just it's like how people describe cuddling with a good book. Um, about putting on an 80s slasher to me. It's so nostalgic, and it feels so good, and it just makes me smile. Horror in general just makes me smile. I don't know what that exactly says about me, but I don't know. Let's see. Question number 6. What bands got you into metal? Yeah, what bands got you into metal? Like I said, I've got this ancient dialect that I'm trying to read that handwriting was not one of my gifts that I was born with. I think I might have told this story before. I can't remember if I did or not. Me and my best friend growing up, he lived right down the street from me. We would, it started out listening to Bon Jovi and stuff like that, but it progressed, Def Leppard, all that kind of stuff. It progressed getting into stuff that was heavier. So what we would do is we would go out usually once a week, probably more than that, but we would try to find the most disturbing cover we could find. That's how it started. And my very first heavy, heavy album, of course, was Megadeth, Peace Sells But Who's Buying, which I immediately fell in love with. I mean, I just love that album so much. That progressed, of course. I was listening to horror, Hellhound's Answers, and he's very right in this respect. You want the next heaviest thing. We got into bands like Hellion, Executioner, trying to think of something, Omen, um, Overkill, bands like that, Testament. We were just trying to go for the heaviest thing. And then finally, bands like, Slayer, of course, was around that time. Rain and Blood, one of my favorite albums of all time. And Venom. And that's kind of, where it kind of led for me anyway. Until grunge came around, sorry, Hellhound, and kind of killed metal. But I mean, it was dying anyway. It had become a parody of itself. So yeah. And Anthrax, of course, I got into them. I was always a little bit. I tried to go a little bit heavier than my friend, and then he finally outdid me with a band called Executioner. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of them. They really didn't do much. They really weren't that good, but they were the fastest um, groaning, screaming band that was around that I heard at that time. So I guess he won. Let's see. Question number 7. I know I'm waffling. What is your favorite type of horror film? Um, Subgenre, of course. I love slashers, specifically 80s slashers. I love all slashers, but 80s slashers are my favorite, my all time. Yeah, like I said, there's nothing more nostalgic to me than putting on like the Mutilator or a Friday the 13th movie. It just makes me feel good inside, and it gives me that nostalgic kind of cuddly feeling. Well, I keep going to cuddly, but that's kind of what it is. But anyway, question number 8. If you could bring back any deceased metal musician, who would it be? Of course, my answer would be Dio. Same as Hellhound. Um, Unfortunately, I never got to see him live. I had tickets for him and Yngwie Malmsteen opening up for Dio. Talk about a concert. And this was around, I don't know if this was around when Joe Lynn Turner was in the band or right after he left. I can't remember what tour it was. I remember what Dio tour was. It was Lock Up the Wolves. But I had tickets to Dio. I think it was at the Patriot Center in Virginia. And they canceled the concert. Okay, see if I can explain this. They moved it to another venue, a smaller venue, and now I can't remember where that is. Maybe it started at the Cap Center and went to the Patriot Center, and then they canceled that one, and finally it went to Painter's Mill, which was not too far from where I lived. And then Painter's Mill, something happened, and either they shut it down or it burnt down. So, regardless, whatever the story is, I never got to see Dio. I did get my money back for the tickets, but yeah, I never did get to see Dio, so that's a regret of mine. I did see Yngwie years later. He was great, but he was a jerk. Yeah. Anybody who knows anything about Yngwie knows he's not exactly the nicest person. Yeah, he thinks a lot of himself, but as far as like a musician that I would probably bring back, it would probably be Prince. Truthfully, because I've always loved Prince. Yeah. But Dio and Prince, bring them both back. You know, that would be the best day of my life. So, but yeah, I had a lot of fun with this tag. Most of the people that I know have already been tagged, so I'm going to leave this open. And I suggest everybody do it because it's a lot of fun. Even if you don't like metal music, like Hellhound said, just pick your favorite music or whatever. I just happen to grow up with metal, so if you like what you see and hear, hit that like button and subscribe. And until next time, guys, peace.